Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Positive Pessimist Podcast. It's Wrestling Wednesday. My guest today is Jim Guzzio. Jim was a two-time New England champion. He was a two-time Connecticut Big Class State champion. He's a two-time ACC champion for the University of Maryland. He was also fifth in the 1997 NCAA Championships. He was the ACC Wrestler of the Year. He also wrestled Justin Ware in the high school national finals. Total stud. I'm looking forward to talking to him, and let's bring him in. Oh, also, please, if you have not subscribed to the channel, make sure you do that. It helps me, it helps my family, and it helps the sport of wrestling. So without any further ado, let's bring in Jim. What's going on, man? How you doing?
Good to meet you.
Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, can you hear me okay?
I can hear you, yeah.
I'm on my wife's laptop because my laptop, the microphone doesn't work. I've been on a lot of Zoom meetings for different stuff and people are like, what? I can't hear you. So we had to go with this. I'm glad it's working and we can have this. So anyway, great to meet you, Tim.
Thank you so much for taking the time to do it. I saw that you live in North Carolina now. How do you like it there? It's a freaking beautiful state.
Yeah, I've been in Charlotte since the end of '99. I went to Maryland, graduated in '97, then did 2 years of grad school at UNC Greensboro. That's where my parents were living. And then I moved down to Charlotte with a couple of friends and just been working in the banking industry for the past 20 years in different sort of roles. And, now here 21 years later, whatever it is, with a family and, wife and, just a lot going on, I guess. So yeah, it's a pretty area. The weather is good. The cost of living is cheap. In fact, one of my friends had a sister-in-law who was thinking about moving here or New York. And I was like, I would move here. I mean, there's a ton to do if you're a young professional. There's a lot of professionals around, a lot of jobs. So, I guess that's my sales pitch for the city, but, no complaints.
Yeah, I've been there a couple times, and it's just a beautiful freaking place. Have you been watching much wrestling?
I actually woke up early today and watched some of the wrestling. I was actually very surprised to see that Dake had lost, and it wasn't Chamizo or Sidikov. I follow college wrestling pretty closely, international, not as much, but I know the main players. And, Dake had just been looking phenomenal. I mean, beating Jordan Burroughs, who's just one of the best all time and doing it in a pretty comfortable fashion, I would say. I thought he would definitely win the gold. So when I woke up and they put his face on the screen and said lost. And I was like, whoa. And it wasn't even Chamizo or Sidikov. Saw David Taylor win. That was great. Last 20 seconds. I mean, I don't know how you dig that deep in the Olympic gold medal match to win, but that's incredible. I can imagine the feeling. And, watch some of the others. Watch Helen take bronze today. Watch Gilman take bronze yesterday. So, it's amazing. Some of these, guys, girls, they're just incredible. Some of their technique, some of the Russians, we're pretty familiar with the American style, living here and following folk style, but seeing some of these Russians and some of the techniques that they use, things that I've never seen. And I'm like, man, I wish I had that, in my bag of tricks when I was, wrestling back in the day. But, it's great to watch. How about you?
Well, I've been recording quite a bit of it, so I haven't been seeing it live or anything, but I did see that Dake lost, and I saw that it was 11-0.
Yeah.
When I saw that, I was like, man, has he had 11 points scored on him combined in the last 2 years? I mean, yeah. He's so hard to score on, so when I saw that somebody beat him that bad, I haven't been able to even see it yet, but.
Yeah, I didn't see it. They showed a few highlights, but I watched that guy wrestle in the semis against Chamizo. And man, that guy was tough. I mean, obviously Chamizo's a world champion maybe a couple times. And that guy, it was a great match, but that guy won. And it was no fluke. The kid was, it was his technique, his strength, his positioning, his balance, the whole package. That's what you got to be. So it's would have seemed unfathomable for sure.
So Dake's not out of it yet then, right?
No, I think since his guy won, the Olympics is a weird system because your guy has to make the finals to get pulled back in.
Yeah.
So literally, Chamizo could have very well beaten that guy from Belarus, I believe, and they could have been done. So one match, and was that his first match, or did he have one
I
that
think
he
it may have
won?
been his first one.
I think that was his first match. So yeah, one match and you're done. All that hard work, all that training, all that sacrifice, all that accomplishment, and you're done with one bad match or one guy who happens to be on fire that day. But no, that guy won, so he got pulled back into the repechage, I think they call it, and he has a chance for bronze. But I think for bronze, he's going to probably have to wrestle Chamizo, so that's not an easy path at all. But no, it's incredible level of wrestling for sure, Tim.
Yeah, the Repper I never know if I'm saying it right, but we went to the Vegas World a few years ago, and Ramos needed this guy from Iran to win to get pulled back in. And all these other fans were kind of ignorant to that. And I'm like, Raheem, me for Ramos, trying to get this chant going.
And no one knew what the heck you were doing, right?
Looking back at me like, why are you cheering for that Iranian? I'm like, because we need him to win, you jackasses.
Right. Yeah, I mean, it's just a weird, a typical folk style bracket. Look at NCAAs, it's double elimination. There's a lot of guys who lose in the first round will come back in place, after that. Some even go all the way back to third. So to me, I don't love the international system where one match and you could be done with no chance of getting a bronze or a wrestling back. But, I don't know all the sort of politics or intricacies with it, but, I think people should get a little bit more opportunity to wrestle. That's my opinion.
Yeah, I definitely think they should get more opportunity to wrestle. The two bronze medals it's kind of weird to me. I'm like, why isn't there just one? But
I agree 100%. I was thinking about that this morning when they were doing the medal presentation and having the 2/3, which is like, okay, how do you have two? Why don't you just do a true wrestle back and find the one person? I don't know. I think they used to just have 1/3, but for whatever reason, now they have two. So, I don't understand it. Again, I follow international loosely. I know the top guys, but really I'm more into the sort of the NCAAs and following those guys. And, that's really my main wrestling interest, I'd say.
Yeah, I kind of hate when I hear people say, we need to get rid of free folk style and just focus on freestyle. I'm like, there's room for both. You don't need to get rid of our style.
I agree. I hate that. I was, well, maybe I'm biased. I was better in folk style. But folk style's been in our country, I don't know how many years, 100, 200, I don't know. But I think folk style is an exciting brand of wrestling. Some people say freestyle is much more exciting. I don't know if I agree with that. You watch some of those matches at the NCAAs that are highly contested, and man, you can't get them any more dramatic than they are. It's, again, I like freestyle. I did some Greco in high school, but folk style to me is what I prefer. And, if they got rid of, people say, okay, we got to prepare our guys for the international level better. I'm like, well, is that the only point of wrestling, is preparing all of our system, youth, middle school, high school, college, to the Olympic level, when there's like less than a half a percentile that even competes at the senior level? To me, it doesn't make sense, so, I think also it would be a major overhaul of all middle school and high school wrestling. And that would be, I don't know if that would be a good for the sport, because do they have the coaches to teach it? Are the kids going to understand it? It would just be a big, big change. So I'm happy with, folk style being where it is, and hopefully that doesn't go away.
And not to mention, I think Ben Askren pointed this out, that folk style wrestling is one of the best self-defense martial arts, if you want to call it that there is, and to take that away, I think would, like to this day, I feel like, I had a really good headlock, and I feel like you never get too fat or old or out of shape to hit that. And I guess obviously they do that in freestyle too, but,
right.
I almost every fight you've ever seen in your life turns into a wrestling match. People
Absolutely.
Don't know how to box. So,
yeah. And that's why wrestlers have done so good in MMA, because it does. Few fights just stay with, punching fists. They go onto the ground and a tackle, or a double leg takedown in the case of a wrestler or whatever. So, I definitely agree there.
Who got you into wrestling?
I would say my dad did. to give you a little, we're from the New Haven area in Connecticut. When my dad was growing up, he was growing up in the 50s, and they didn't have high school wrestling then. I think high school wrestling started really in the late 60s, early 70s in Connecticut. But, so my dad didn't know anything about it, but he ended up going to Lehigh University because he wanted to get into engineering and mathematics and all that. And he went there, and I'm sure Lehigh is a huge wrestling program with a huge wrestling following. They'd pack the house. So my dad watched it and was like intrigued. And then, he said, there were some JV wrestlers on his hall that he would wrestle with, and he thought he could do okay with, so long story short, when I was growing up, sometimes he'd wrestle me in the living room and make me believe that I could beat him. And so, I'd beat him. I'm like, man, I must be pretty good. I'm beating my dad, and then there would be times maybe a year later where he would beat me and I'm like, oh, I'm not getting better. But he really introduced me to it. But, around like maybe 5 or 6 or 7 years old, there'd be like a clinic in town once a year where we'd go down there for a couple of days and just learn a little bit about the sport. And, I'd have these little live sessions with kids and do pretty good. But I didn't really start wrestling until the 6th grade when we had a middle school team, because I think after those first years of having a clinic, I was just focused on football, baseball, and even basketball to some extent. But when we got to middle school, my dad's like, you're going out for the wrestling team, right? I'm like, oh yeah. Yeah. And, but I was still really big into baseball and football specifically, but I got into wrestling and ended up being what I was obviously best at. So that's how it all kind of unfolded.
Yeah. I noticed, or I saw that you won pretty much everything there was to win in high school, as far as, your states that you were wrestling in, and how many losses did you take in high school? Because you won the championship every year, right? Freshman.
No, I didn't. I actually, I had all through Connecticut, I had, I think, like 16 or 17 losses. Okay. So Connecticut has a structure where you have a Class L state tournament, like you guys have probably, it's like large school, and then you guys probably have 4A or 3A, all states are different, but we have a large school, medium school, small school, and then double large, and they all come together at the end for a state open tournament. So my first year, I took 3rd at the states, and then took 5th at the open. So it was, off to a pretty good start. I think I was only one of 2 people to place at the open who were freshmen that year. And things were different back then. Nowadays, freshmen win states like it's nothing. Back then, it was a lot more rare. But then my sophomore year, not to get onto a tangent or anything, but I was 3rd seeded at the states, and the guy I had in the semis ended up being a big rival of mine, and he had beat me pretty handily in the dual meet, like 8-4, and I was like, all right, I got to get him this time. And so I was in the semis, and it's the 3rd period, and we're tied, and I take bottom. So I have this bright idea that I'm gonna, stall out for like a minute and a half, hang on, and then escape at the last 30 seconds so we won't have any time to take me down. So that was my bright idea. And what happened was I stood up to go for my escape, and he went through the crotch, cross arm, picked me up and threw me onto my back for a 5 count. And I lost 8-5. So, and then in the Conci semis, I had the number 1 seed. He ended up losing. He got upset, and he was a real tough kid, and I lost to him 1-0. He was a senior when I was a sophomore. And then for 5th and 6th, the guy I had beaten easily in the quarters threw me and pinned me. So it was like one of these, awful days. And I felt I was a lot better than that. But it's funny. My dad afterwards, we were in the car. I couldn't even stay in the gym. I was so disgusted with myself. And he was like, you need to figure out a way to win the opens next year. I'm like, oh, okay. Like not just the L's, the opens. And, that summer, that spring, I went and wrestled like 100 matches in the off season in New York, New Jersey, Pennsylvania. John Smith came to town and, to Connecticut, I should say, and put on a camp. And it was just really helped me with my technique in neutral, just incredible, the setups. And I try to emulate his style a lot. So it was just very beneficial. And then, I'd done decent at junior nationals. I didn't place or anything like that, but I got some confidence. So I went back the next year, won L's opens in New England. So those are the three things and went undefeated. So, and got the guy who I'd lost to in the semis the year before, got him in the state championship and beat him. So,
Nice.
yeah, so it was a good run.
And that was your junior year?
Yep. And then my senior year, if we're going to go into it, I was undefeated all the way to this. I won the Yale school states, and then in the state open, I was wrestling a guy who I had beaten in the dual meet like 12-7 or something like that, and he was a judo guy. So, when I'm wrestling people who are traditional wrestling people, if you tie me up here or have this set up or your inside tie or underhook, I know it's coming. Like I can guess, so I can anticipate. He just had these like trips and throws that came out of nowhere. And, I'd taken him down, and then in the first period, he ended up taking me down 3 times in a row with this random stuff. And I think I'd maybe only been taken down once all season before that match. And I was like, so anyway, I got myself into a pretty deep hole there, and I fought back. And then at the end of the match, I was in deep, and I had picked him up in the air, ready to bring him down to win it, probably like 15 seconds left. I bring him down, and somehow he catches, he catches his balance, gets his feet down. Then I shot in on a shot, and he kind of flips me out of bounds, and I look up and I see 2 seconds left. I'm like, holy cow, I cannot believe I lost this match. So that was pretty devastating at the time, but then, it got me motivated and focused. And sometimes I think losses are the best thing for you. I mean, I didn't want to go through it, but, I came back in New England's and won that, pretty much going away. He had taken 5th, and then, I ended up going in high school nationals and taking 2nd. And I don't think that would have transpired if I hadn't had that loss and really got focused and said, I was real, I was overly confident, and it came back to, came back to bite me. So, as a lesson learned, it's good to be confident, but you got to be focused. And I don't think I was focused. Not taking anything away from him. He wrestled a great match, had a great career, won 2 New England titles himself. But that's kind of how that all went down.
Yeah. You mentioned high school nationals, which was actually my next question. Because that you've watched this podcast, I'm kind of intrigued with Justin Ware because of his story. He was so good when I was a kid, and then he just kind of he got beat out at the NCAA tournament. He was ranked 6th as a freshman, and then he just, to this day, people have never heard from him. He's like this very mysterious figure. I'd love to talk to him.
No, absolutely.
What do you remember about that national tournament, the high school national tournament?
Yeah, it was so. Back then there was freestyle nationals, which is now known as Fargo. And then there was senior nationals. There was no junior, sophomore. It was like high school seniors who had won states or took 2nd could go for a national championship. So those were your 2 options, freestyle, folk style. So I went there, and it was weird. Like, I don't know what I was thinking, but I remember I was warming up. I'm like, man, I got to win this thing. And that wasn't something that I would thought. I think I would probably have gone into it like I'd like to place, but something just came upon me where I'm like, I need to make a run here. So, I won my first couple matches, and then the quarters, I got this kid from Ohio who was a state champ, well regarded. And it's a funny story, which led me to Maryland that I'll get into later, but, was in a real battle with him and ended up beating him 9-3. And I was like, so I was psyched. I was like, I'm an All-American. I hadn't placed in junior national freestyles or Greco. So I was like pumped up. And then I had a couple-time Oklahoma champion, I believe, in the semis, and, close match. And then I got him, I took him down, and then I was real good on top with legs, and I hit him in a power half and just stuck him. So I was like, holy cow, it was awesome. I mean, it was a great day. Then going into the finals, we don't have internet back then, Tim, you're my age about, there's no internet, but I'd gone to junior nationals, and you see these elite guys, and there's this guy named Dusty Malden from Oklahoma, he was like a weight class below me, but he was a stud. And he beat TJ Friedrichs, the guy you had on your podcast a while back, in the finals. And they were both, incredible. But, Dusty was just really tactical, fast, slick, John Smith like. And, again, no internet. But then I got an amateur wrestling news, and I read this kid, Justin Ware, beat Dusty Malden in a close match. I'm like, whoa. I'm like, who the hell is this kid? Because I don't, to my knowledge, Justin Ware wasn't out at Freestyle Nationals. He might have been, but I never saw him. Again,
I don't think he wrestled freestyle. I think he was I heard he was a really good baseball player, and he just wrestled folk style, and that was it, to my knowledge. I never saw him wrestle freestyle.
Yeah, that makes sense because I had never seen him. And again, there's 200 people in a bracket out in Junior National. So, but someone who's good and will likely make a run, and you'd take notice of them. But I was feeling good, but I was like, all right, here's this Justin Ware kid. And I didn't know much about him, but I was feeling okay. Like, I'm on a run. I think I can win it. But when you go on the mat, like, I didn't cut any weight in high school, and no excuses, but I was weighing probably like 136, 137. He walked out there and he was like definitely a weight class bigger than me if you looked at him, but no excuses. I mean, he was a beast. I remember being in on a single and picking it up in the air, and like it was 0-0 at the end of the first period, and he just cranked a quarter Nelson and brought me back to the mat. And it was so much pressure. I actually went to my back and was down 5-0 at the end of the first period. Second period, he rode me. He was strong, tough, and I eventually got out, and I hit him in a double leg, thinking, all right, I'm in good shape. And he just like kicked me over, flipped me back to my back, and stuck me. And I'm like, wow, that was that was humbling, So I was like, wow, this kid's really, really good. And kind of going down the Justin Ware path. Of course, the people you lose to, you follow, but he had redshirted his first year at Nebraska, so didn't know too much about what was going on with him. But then that next year, he was a redshirt freshman, and remember, Alan Freed was a complete monster, one of the best guys ever. And Justin Ware went toe to toe with him. And I'm like, wow, I knew Ware was good. I didn't know he was that good. And he, I can't remember, but I think he went into nationals with like 3 losses, which as a freshman is pretty insane.
Especially back then.
Yeah. And, nowadays you get these freshmen, the Spencer Lees, and these guys are like international level coming into college. They're so good. But back then that was really, really rare. And yeah, I was like, I was rooting for him because I'm like, all right, this is a guy that beat me. I want to see him, do really well. And, he lost in the first round. He was seated really high. And I was like, and it was just kind of like, it was kind of like a surprise. And then he had on the back side, he lost to a guy who was really good from Lock Haven, who ended up being a couple-time All-American, I believe. And he lost, I believe, 11-10 or something like that. It was a close match. And so he was out. And then, that's that. And so you expect him to come back next year. And I really believe if he was back and he wrestled all 4 years, he wouldn't have beaten Colette or McElravy probably, but man, he would have been battling with them. He would have been right there in the finals, I think. I think he was that level of guy. Colette and McElravy are just otherworldly. So I can't predict anyone against them, but I think he could have been in the finals. I mean, Bono was in the finals against McElravy. I think he would have been right there. And then this guy, Roger Chandler, was in the finals against Colette, who was really good, but I think Ware would have been right there as well. Just my humble opinion. But yeah, like you said, he just disappeared and never heard from him again. That was it. Just fell off the map. I had a friend who wrestled at Nebraska, and he just basically said that after Ware lost, he just disappeared, like just done. Like I maybe even just left school. I don't remember the story, but it was just like that was it. No, nothing.
I think he did leave school, and yeah, it was just a very intriguing story. And if it makes you feel any better, he did definitely cut for that high school national tournament because he wrestled 140 that year, and he certainly was not a fat 140.
No,
yeah, so he was. I think they gave you 7 pounds, right, at nationals. So
yeah. Well, the weight class was 130. You get 5 pounds, so it was 130. Right. Plus 5. So I wrestled 135 my senior year. And I really should have gone down to 125 plus 5. But back then I didn't like cutting weight. I just was like, who cares? I'm just going to wrestle. And so I went 130 plus 5. But he was a big kid. And again, in college, my first year I was 126. I sucked down pretty hard to get there. And he was 142, which, but again, he was a better wrestler than me. No excuses. I mean, there's no doubt about it. He was a higher level, but just when you see us walking out on the mat, it's like, okay, this guy has no chance. And that was me.
Yeah. Well, they probably gave you quite a while to recover back then too. When you,
Yep.
yeah,
Yeah, it was a couple day tournament, so I think you made weight on Friday. And I don't think I wrestled the finals till Sunday.
yeah. So he may have
So
weighed 150 in that final.
yeah, yep, yeah, exactly. I mean, the way he just kicked me over from that double leg and put me on my back, it was just easy. Like and then how he muscled me over in the quarter Nelson, it was like,
Yeah.
what are you gonna do? But yeah, no, good memories for sure.
Well, tell me about not only what led you to Maryland, but I was curious how your freshman year went. Was it like a tough transition?
All right, well, I'll explain what led me to Maryland first, and then go into that. So remember I was telling you at the high school nationals in the quarterfinals, I was wrestling a kid from Ohio. Well, as it turns out, Maryland was recruiting that kid hard. His name was Pete Nathanson, I believe, and he was, a good kid. Um, you know, it's the type of match that could have gone either way. I just happened to be on that day, and I ended up beating him. And I guess the Maryland coaches were watching, like, and they're like, "Wow, like maybe we should be going after this Connecticut kid." That's what my coaches told me when I got there. They're like, we were recruiting him really hard. Now, who knows if Nathanson would have gone there, if they really had a chance at him or whatever, but they basically were like, yeah, we saw you. And we're like, so they reached out. And, at that point I was pretty set on going to NC State. I'd taken some visits. I'd gone to West Virginia and I checked out Pitt and Old Dominion. But I was thinking I was definitely going to go to NC State. And then Maryland called and was like, have you signed anything? And we're like, no. They're like, just come check out our campus. And they had a big scholarship for me, bigger than the other schools by far. And so I just went down there, liked the campus, and just was like, this could be the right place for me. So that's how I ended up there.
Okay, cool.
So freshman year at Maryland, I think, I can't remember what I had for dinner last night, but I can remember my wrestling like it was yesterday. But I think I was about 12-9. I started off at 34 and I was going to redshirt. But then our 26-pounder got injured, and our coach is like, dude, you're small enough. You can make 26. I was like, oh, hell no. And but I was like, I wanted to help the team out. And I was also kind of like to kind of wrestle in the varsity lineup right out of the gate. That'd be cool. So, I got down, wrestled 26, and it was tough. I mean, it was tough making that weight. I mean, and look, in all candidness, I wasn't the best at my diet. I mean, I was drinking a lot of sodas, eating whatever the heck I wanted, and then coming down hard every single week for the dual meet. So, I mean, I wasn't doing it right, but at the same time, it was a tough pull regardless. And I had finished, I think, 12-9. I'd beaten a kid from NC State, who was a top 20 kid, and wrestled close matches with some other guys who were like in that 10 to 20 range. Did solid, beat some decent guys for sure. At ACCs, I think I was seated third, and that NC State kid was seated second, who I had beaten in the duel. So if I win that, I go to NCAs, and then in the duel and then ACCs, he got me. He just out wrestled me. I lost by a couple points. Though I beat him in the duel, he definitely won that one solidly. So I wrestled in the wrestlebacks, and I lost for third to go to nationals to a kid named Jared Etzel, who was really tough as well. Would place like third at Midlands that year, and I think I lost 1-0 maybe. But no, what's a funny story about that one is at ACCs there was 2 ways in. So you weigh in that morning, Friday, you wrestle your match on Friday night, then you have to make weight again that night, and then you wrestle Saturday in the finals or consies or whatever. And I remember before I got on the wrestling mat to start warming up, I checked my weight after I had weighed in at 126, and I was like 136. It's like, holy crap. I'm like, I'm screwed. So I'm like, well, I can't worry about that now. I just got to wrestle. So I went out, wrestled the NC State kid, lost, and got done with the match, put my plastics on, sweat, started running, getting in the sauna, just, in there, trying to cut as much weight as I can. I remember like Sam Henson was in there, and, some other real good guys from that time. So it comes to the nighttime weigh-in, and I'm like 0.2 of a pound over. And they're like, you got like 5 minutes, and I'd taken my plastics off. So I tried to, get back in the sauna and try to lose it. And they're like, all right, you got to get on the scale now. And I got on a scale and I was 0.1 over.
Man.
And they're like, nope, you got to wait till tomorrow. And meantime, all my teammates are out at an Italian restaurant going to eat or getting ready to. And I was so pissed. I was like, I slammed the locker. I was like, it was just a whole nother night of trying to starve myself and just, so I was so upset. Came back the next morning real early, lost the rest of the way, competed, won my Conti semi, and then lost for third. So that's a funny story. It wasn't funny at the time, but it's kind of funny to look back on because we all have our cutting weight stories.
Yeah. So that was your sophomore year?
Oh, that was my freshman.
Your freshman year. Okay.
Yep.
And then how'd your sophomore year go?
So my sophomore year, I was probably about 500. I moved up to 134. And that year I'd gone against a lot of legit All-American guys who were older and more seasoned, a little bit better than me. And, battled with them close, but wasn't, I would fight like hell to win, but I just wasn't quite good enough or strong enough or whatever it was. So I was third seed in the ACC again, and the top three go to nationals. And the guy who was a second seed, his name is Mike Kravchuk, who's, I think, at least a one-time All-American, but I lost to him in the duel. He was a senior when I was a sophomore. I lost to him 3-2. He was a real good kid. And then I got him in the semis of the ACCs, same score, 3-2. I battled him, but he was just a little bit better. I think he ended up placing fifth that year. So I went in the Conti semis, and in the Conti semis, I had a guy who I'd beaten pretty easily during the year. He's a good kid, Scott Frenzy. He was an ACC champ for Duke later on. I beat him like 9-4. And then the other guy, I beat him 9-4 in the duel. And then, so it's funny, same kind of story. So I was beating him by 3 points in the third period, I believe, if I can recall it correctly. I was beating him. I took bottom. And again, just kind of like my sophomore year in high school, I was trying for my escape. And at the end of the period, the end of the match, he cross-face cradled me and put me on my back and tied it up.
Damn.
And then we go into overtime, and I was shot, and he just shot right in, right out of the gate, took me down. And that, I know you've asked people what their worst loss is, but that had to be because I was ready to go to nationals. That was my sights were set on it. I had to beat, two guys who I had beaten during the year. The guy he wrestled for third, he lost to, but it was an NC State guy that I wrestled a ton of times who was real tough kid, but I had beaten him pretty handily in the dual meet. So I felt good about my chances, but it was just all gone just from that loss and not being able to get out on bottom and getting turned. So, that was kind of the story of that year.
And then your junior year, you ended up winning ACCs. So is that right?
Yeah, I redshirted the next year because I hadn't redshirted, and I was about 20-5, and I started really feeling like I was getting a lot better and, starting to beat people you're not supposed to beat. That's always a good indicator that you're going in the right direction. So I was 20-5, and then so redshirt, I just competed in open tournaments, and then the next year came back. I won the ACCs, and I was seeded 11th at NCAAs, but only went 1 and 2 out there.
Okay. And then your senior year, you were the ACC Wrestler of the Year. You won ACCs, and then you ended up getting 5th at NCAAs. So what helped you turn that corner and become one of the best guys in the country?
Just perseverance, hard work. I had certain techniques that I was good at. I was good at leg rider, so I could turn a lot of people with that, if not ride them. I was good with re-shots, and I had some good, leg attacks in general, a good shrug. And, honestly, it was just the grinding every year and getting a little bit better. I just got a little bit better every single year. And, again, I'd beaten some good guys earlier in my career, but then I started, beating more guys who were sort of in the top 10 to 20 range, starting to compete against them and usually win, lost some, but if not, they'd be real close matches anyway. And just in those close matches, just finding a way to win and then getting confidence because you keep finding that way to win. And, when you beat people you're not supposed to beat, your whole perspective changes and you're like, what, I can really compete at this level. And I beat this guy. And, and you start thinking about it and you start setting your sights a little bit higher. So, again, I think going into my junior year, I thought I could potentially place if I have a good day. I don't know that I was real confident on that, and that didn't work out. But my senior year, that was the goal. I was focused, and I may not been the strongest wrestler or the best conditioned, but I would fight to the death to try to win, and it was that important to me. And I think I had good technique, and I think God blessed me with some decent athleticism as well. I always considered myself pretty quick, so I could get in on people's legs and, do some things there. So, just that combination of sort of working hard, staying on track. There's a lot of ups and downs. It's not, I tell people, who were in college wrestling, who, asked my advice. I'm like, look, I had a lot of struggles myself, man. It isn't just, oh, All-American, great, happy story. No, there was a lot of struggles, weight loss, losing matches you didn't want to lose, getting into little rots, practice, just wearing you down, doing the extras, it's just tough, kind of sacrifices some of the social stuff because you want to be a good wrestler. So, I think it was just staying on track, persevering, had that goal and just kept fighting for it and just kept getting better and better. And then, I had a mindset going into those matches like, hey, I'm going to win. I know I can't, I've worked too hard. I know what I'm capable of doing, and I'm not going to hold back anything. So that was sort of the culmination of it all.
Cool. And Ironside was the champion that year. Did you ever wrestle him?
Yep. I wrestled him in the semis. He's a machine. I mean, he's, for people who don't know, he won the Hodge Trophy, which is like the Heisman Trophy of wrestling, as the best guy in all of collegiate wrestling, 2-time national champion. That's not the right matchup for me. He's literally strong as hell. He's conditioning and his pace is incredible. He's been working with the Brands. I've heard a podcast on him, how he worked out with the Brands every day, two of the best wrestlers in wrestling history.
Yeah.
I had some good guys to work out with. Some of my teammates were a couple-time national qualifiers, real good, pushed me hard, but they weren't the Brands either, and I wasn't the Brands for them either. So, yeah. He just was so strong, and I thought I could beat him, but I knew I had to wrestle a perfect match. And, I battled, but at the end of the day, he was the better guy. He beat me, I think, 8-4. It's funny, on the third period, he took neutral because I think he probably knew that going on bottom against me wasn't, probably the best idea, and just to keep it on his feet and just wear me out. So, I thought that would be my last chance to get on top and try to work a power half or some turns, but didn't get that opportunity. And, yeah, man, he's one of the best ever, especially in Iowa history. So, it was, I always liked wrestling these elite guys just to see where I stood, where I was always had it on my sort of like your chip on your shoulder, like, I can hang with this guy. I can beat this guy. I might be this guy from Connecticut, or I might be from University of Maryland, not necessarily wrestling powerhouses, but I'm like, what does this guy have that I don't, not being cocky, but just kind of just being like, let's go, just, having that sort of, you're up for that challenge and you want to fight like hell to win. So I guess that's how that went.
I saw last night that he beat, I think it was Steven Schmidt in the finals, and he beat him like 10-4. So
yep.
Closer match with him than Schmidt did.
Yeah. I think Schmidt during the year had given him a closer match, but in the finals, Ironside just rolled through him pretty good. And I think you probably know 97 was on a roll, and they were just unstoppable, had like 5 champions or something crazy like that. It was a crazy, because that was Gable's last year, and Ironside was on a roll. He just dismantled him for the most part. I would have liked to have been on the other side against Schmidt. Not to say I would have beaten him, because he was really, really good as well, but I probably would have had a better chance than maybe, Ironside, and maybe would have liked to have gotten to the finals. Again, Schmidt would have been the favorite. I think he was at least a 3 or 4-time All-American. So, I definitely would have had my work cut out for me, but I think I would have been a better matchup with him, if I were going to be honest.
And then if you got fifth, you would have lost in the consolation semifinals, right?
Yep.
Okay. So who beat you there?
Well, his name is Euro Washington.
Okay.
He was a two-time All-American from Fresno State. He wrestled a little bit on the international scene, was solid. That was a crazy match. And I've never been able to see that match. I don't know I'm sure it was videotaped, but I've never seen it. But it's funny, in the third period, I took bottom and I think we were tied and I escaped. And then with about a minute and 30 seconds left, I took him down, or maybe a minute 40, maybe a minute 30 at a lapse, and there might have been like 30 seconds left. So I was on top, my best position. I'm up by 3, feeling good. And he escapes, and then at the last second shoots in, takes me down, and we go to overtime. And I was like, shit. I'm like, all right. So then in overtime, he shot a high crotch. And I used to do this thing where you lock through the crotch and you scoot and you put your leg in to get the 2. And I swear to God, I thought I had the 2. I was like, oh, I got it. Here we go. I'm all set. I'm going to win this match. And then he just kind of reversed back into me and took me down. I'm like, holy cow, what the hell just happened? That was disappointing. I would have liked to have wrestled for third and fourth. But he was real good. He was real fast. He's the type of guy I like to wrestle because he was wide open, fast, not just someone who's real strong and has a great gas tank. He just, real good technique, slick, and that's just more of the style. Wrestling's a conflict of styles. You get someone who's your style that more aligns with your strengths and you're in better shape than someone who doesn't. So I think my style aligned better with that more wide open, fast paced sort of match.
So you ended up fifth. How great a feeling was that after 5 years of Division I grind and everything? How great a feeling was it to win your last match and end up fifth in the country?
It was great. That match was tough as well. I won 7-6, was down and pulled it out at the very end. Good kid from Arizona State. And it was just like, it was like, wow, the culmination of all these years and all this hard work. And I did it. There's no guarantee, I'd go into a lot of matches not knowing I would win, but knowing I had a chance to win.
Yeah.
So, a lot of people say, oh, I knew I was going to win. A lot of times when I'm wrestling a really good guy, I don't know I'm going to win. I know I have a chance to win, but who knows how the scramble will go? Who knows if he catches me or I get him in what I want to get him in, So for me, it was like, I'd go out and win a national seeded fifth. And I was like, I obviously got a chance, but see what happens. This is it, but this is the last time. So I was really just kind of firing on all cylinders and felt good and wrestled well pretty much the whole tournament, and again, maybe would have liked to have wrestled a different match against Ironside. He was definitely better than me, but the better guy doesn't always win, right? That's what makes wrestling great. And, if I could have somehow pulled off an upset, that would have been incredible, but that wasn't in the cards. And what that guy's put in so much hard work into wrestling. He deserved to win more than anybody else. So, but just having that opportunity to compete and, it all finishing off on a high note. And, that usually doesn't happen in wrestling, and I feel fortunate in that. I know a lot of guys who are my teammates who are really good wrestlers who went to nationals, won some matches, but just, didn't quite make it to All-American status. And they were very good wrestlers and tough, but, usually the story isn't a happy ending in wrestling. That's just how it goes, and I try to tell people, if your whole thought process is like winning and championships, then you're going to be disappointed. You've got to get more from the sport than just that. The experience, the work ethic, the tenacity, just that focused mindset of, going after your goals and just, as a wrestler, you're, living a different lifestyle. You're just, you're disciplined. It's hard. So, but there's value in, I say, a guy who's JV and finally makes varsity and places in their conference as much as someone who's a two-time national champion. There's value in all of it. And that's what I tell people. Not everyone's barometer of success is the same. So
would you say that Ironside was the toughest guy you ever wrestled, or would there be someone else?
I would actually give a slight nod to TJ Jaworski.
Okay.
TJ, if you don't know, was a 3-time NCAA champion. He beat Colette one year in the NCAA finals. That just shows you the level he's at.
Yeah.
He was a Hodge winner as well. I was younger and smaller, so and not as good when I wrestled him versus when I wrestled Ironside. So it isn't really comparing apples to apples. But man, he was so freaking strong, and he had great, incredible leg attacks. And on top, he was he just punished the hell out of you. Um, so I would probably give him a slight edge over Ironside. I mean, some people would argue that, and no answer is right. But I would say Jaworski was just incredibly elite, and just there was no. I mean, he just kicked my butt like I had nothing for him, and I've definitely lost in my day, but to be dominated like that in folk style, just that rarely happened. And there was just nothing I could do. And he'd start running this arm, I don't know if it's an arm bar or whatever, and he'd just crank it and you'd be fighting it. And eventually you just can't fight it anymore. You just go over and it just, but yeah, he was really, really good as well.
Did you ever wrestle Carrie Colette?
No, it's funny. I really wanted to. Again, the chance of beating him is slim to none, with Slim just walking out the door. But I was in the semis of the Penn State Open, and I was wrestling this kid, Sean Enright, who's an All-American from Ohio U, and who ended up being a national finalist, lost to Ironside his senior year. And I had split with him in my career. I think we went 2-2, but I was wrestling him in the semis of the Penn State Open, and I was beating him. And I was excited because I'm like, I'll get to wrestle Cole. I know it's not going to probably turn out too well, but I want to be able to say I wrestled him and see how I do. I want to battle and just see what happens. But Enright, I think it was in the third period, he lateraled me to my back and beat me. And so I didn't get that opportunity to wrestle Cole. I think Enright got pinned in the first period, if that kind of tells you sort of what my chances would have been. Dude, I mean, Cole, that was insane. Probably the best wrestler of my era. And I remember watching him at a tournament. He was at East Stroudsburg. He's wrestling this real good guy who had beaten me pretty easily from Lock Haven, who was an All-American. And he hit him in this fireman's that it was like blinding. Like if you blinked, you would not have even known what happened. And it was just like it was like the quickest, most smooth, powerful, explosive move I've ever seen. And the dude was just on his back. And it was like, I just sat there kind of like, wow. I mean, this guy's just a different type of human being. He's not, that's between God's gifts and a work ethic. There's that is like, it was insane. I can't really describe it, Tim, but yeah, he was incredible.
Yeah. I read about him in Sports Illustrated and when I was in high school, and then he was a couple years older than me. And then my senior year of high school, we took a trip. Our high school team went to a national duels, and I watched him. And I think he was wrestling Babak Mohammedine, who beat him that year. But
yeah, which was a surprise. But yep,
in this particular match, he beat Babak like 13-4. He handled him really well. Yep. And I think I may be completely wrong on that. Maybe not, actually, because Oregon State probably wouldn't have been at national duels.
Maybe. Actually, they had a pretty good team back there. They had Les Gutches, Chad Renner. They had some good guys. So actually, I think that they might have been there.
I have a similar story about watching him. He hit a low level, Jim, that, dude, it was like he was standing up, and then he was like he levitated, and it all happened so fast, and he just reached out and snatched this dude's leg and was back on his feet so fast. I can't even describe it and give it justice, but I was like hitting the people next to me like, did you freaking see that? And people are like, what? And I'm like, I've never seen anyone, I didn't know a human body could do that.
Right. And that's exactly what it was like. It was like I was just like, holy cow. Yeah. I know what you mean, because he would hit moves sometimes, and I didn't see that particular time. I don't believe I did, but I know what you mean. He hits something and you're just like, that's like something that you'll never see at any level by any person. He was a different breed, man. I mean, he was just, in my era, he was like the legend. He was the guy. And, again, there's no internet back then, but you hear at local tournaments, there's this guy Colette, and he's like this phenom, and you hear like these stories, and, and then you eventually see him and you're like, wow. I mean, he was built like a college senior in high school. I mean, he was thick, strong, explosive, little package. So and obviously ended up doing exceptionally well throughout his life. So yeah, he was incredible.
When you talk about heartbreaking, it often ends in heartbreak. I mean, dude, that guy got screwed at least
Yep.
4 years in a row. And if things had gone a little different and he had won Worlds and Olympics 4 years in a row, which he was right there to do, if he had done that, I think he probably would, because his goal was to be the best ever. And if they hadn't screwed him and he had won those, he may have gone on to win 3 or 4 more. He may have ended up being the best wrestler USA ever had, even surpassing John Smith. And I know that's a stretch because obviously, but
yeah, no, I think
saying.
I think that's a fair point. I mean, look, John Smith is in my mind the greatest, and I try to his technique, I try to emulate in his style. But Colette, he would have. I mean, in certain ways, he has gone down as one of the greatest, though his results don't reflect that. Yeah. In college, he won 2 national titles, but he had beaten Jaworski during the year, but then lost to Muhammadi in the semis. I don't want to say he choked. You can't take credit away from Muhammadi, but it's like, wow, that was unexpected. And he lost to Jaworski his freshman year in the finals. And again, 4-time, being in the finals as a true freshman didn't happen back then. It was just didn't happen.
Yeah.
Yeah, look, I think about college wrestling, how much you sacrifice from a social perspective, and just there's so much you have to put into it that you can't enjoy all the aspects of college that most people can. Not to say we didn't have a decent amount of fun, when the time called for it, but you do have to sacrifice. But I can't imagine putting my life on hold, training for Olympics and world championships, and putting my career on hold, and then getting screwed over. I mean, that would just be, and I think it happened to him like twice or something like that. So, I mean, that's got to be devastating, because wrestling was obviously a very, very, very important part of his life, and for him to get shortchanged of his goals like that has got to be just, I can't imagine. I've had bad losses, but they can't compare to that.
Have you seen the documentary on Flo, the Colette documentary?
Yes, I did. Yep.
Dude, it was so good. And
it was. I hadn't seen it in a while, but it was really, really good. Because he was my year, 1992 high school, 97 college. And so he was like the man. And part of me about your podcast I love is you talk to all these old school guys, that I hadn't heard about in years. Like, and you could go and find a Spencer Lee or Gabe Stevenson podcast anywhere, and that's great. But there's so much internet, all about these guys. Whereas back in the day, you brought on Eric Aiken and Sam Henson. Sam Henson was a beast when I was in the ACC, beat my teammate a couple times who was a 2-time All-American. And just hearing what they went through and their process and their ups and downs and their journey, it's like, oh, wow, that's really cool. Even and their perspective now being 25 years later, because my perspective when I was 21 or 22, I'd sound like a totally different person than I do now.
Yeah.
So I think that's really cool.
Yeah, I appreciate that very much. Yeah, my son's got 2 middle names, and his second one is Colette.
Oh, really? Oh, that's awesome. Yeah. That's awesome. So I guess you've been a big fan of his then for a while now.
Yeah, that when I read about him when I was in high school in that Sports Illustrated, and then when I got to see him live, and I remember he was really close to me. He was just a few feet away, and I was in high school, and I remember thinking like, you should talk to him, but I was so like scared of the guy. And I remember seeing him get Sprite and thinking to myself like, Carrie Colette drinks Sprite.
Yeah. No, absolutely. Yeah, I think guys like him were super, because I'd see him around tournaments, super focused. I'm the type who, like, if I saw a guy like who had wrestled before, I knew, I'd be like, hey man, how's it going? What's going on? You doing all right? Just shoot the breeze. Like, that's just, on the mat, we're going to war, we're battling, and you're fighting to the death to win. But outside the mat, I'm like, hey man, how's it going? So you have respect for everybody, and and you're just, just you have that sort of, rapport because you've battled with them. But people like him, I think, were very he was very, very focused. And, I don't think he was much for socialization, it just in terms of when it came to wrestling. I think he was all business and, kind of kept to himself and knew he was on a mission type of thing. So yeah, that's my perception, at least. I don't know if that's completely true.
No, I think you're right. My friend Gons wrestled for the University of Pennsylvania, and he told me, we went to watch California state finals a few years ago, and he told me, he goes, yeah, when I used to think Colette was a jerk, and then because he was just so all about business, and then I talked to him, and he was like, he gave away a bunch of shoes or something. He was like, dude, he's one of the nicest people I've ever met, but he was just so intense that he could come off like, whatever.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
Exactly. He's on a mission, and, he doesn't have time for small talk, and I get it. Look at him. He's one of the greatest ever. And he was a legend back then, still is one. And, should have been at least a one-time world champion, maybe an Olympic champion. And, he's basically, done everything there is to do in the sport. So, yeah, I think you have to be a different sort of animal as a wrestler, but to be that good of a wrestler, you were just in a whole different sort of mindset. And yeah, people like the great ones like him, and maybe even Ironside or the Brances, those guys are just wired different, man. And it's not surprising they end up as good as they do. So,
well, switching gears a little bit, I like to ask people sometimes what the hardest thing you've ever had to deal with was, whether it was on a mat or off. So what would that be for you?
It would definitely be off the mat, because I mean, as much as wrestling was important, it's not everything. I think probably there was in 2017, the end of 2017, right after her birthday, my mom, who was 81, she went to the beach with my dad and brother, and it was like the day or two after her birthday, and I woke up early and I was praying in the morning, just doing my morning prayers, and the phone rang at like 7:00, and that was random. And I'm like, who's calling me now? And then I see it's my dad, and or maybe he had my brother's cell phone, and I picked up, but it was my dad on the line. He's like, hey, I've got some really bad news. And I'm like, and my heart stopped. And he's like, your mom died last night. And it just a punch to the gut, like, didn't expect, it was just didn't see it coming. I mean, I just seen her on Christmas. Everything was great. Had a good time. Just it came out of nowhere. And it was just so shocking, so that was tough. And then, compounding that, like a few months earlier, my wife's dad had passed away from cancer. And after a tough fight, that cancer it was tough to watch him sort of just wither away. I mean, and I hate that, that's a crude way of saying it, but just, that was tough on her and me as well. And then it got even worse. My uncle had passed, probably, a year later. And then in 2018, my brother, who was born with Down syndrome, he was a year older than me. He's my buddy, just a sweet soul. He lived with my parents all up till maybe the mid-20s. And then they wanted to get him into a group home so that he could be more independent. They weren't going to be around forever. And so he'd be okay with the transition when they did pass. But he, when my mom died, my mom wanted to keep him up in Greensboro where he was at. But I was like, well, let's get him down to Charlotte so it'd be easier to see him rather than having to drive up there all the time. So I was in the process of doing that. And, I went to church. My aunt was in town. I went to church and my phone started ringing off the hook at church. I'm like, what is going on? And I'm like, I thought it was nothing. And then I left the church and I picked up and they said, Michael's choked on a muffin, and he was getting on the van on the way to work and choked on a muffin. He's in bad shape. And I'm like, what? And so I called the woman, and I'm like, and the woman at the group home was like, yeah. And I could just tell she was very uncomfortable talking to me, like and I'm like, well, choking, people choke and they're fine. You know what I mean? Like, I don't always go to the most extreme negative thought. I'm like, oh, I'm sure he'd be all right. And I'm like, and she was describing it. She's like, he was without air for a long time. And I'm like, well, is he going to be all right? And she's like, I hope so. I don't know. And I was like, and so I got up in the car, raced up there, and, all these people from his group home were there. And I was looking at him. I mean, he's Down syndrome. He's the most innocent kid. Again, beautiful soul, my buddy, known him, all my life, obviously. And just seeing him there lying helpless on his hospital bed, and he was like convulsing, like just out of, like, I'd be with him and he would just, he'd convulse like that. And that would give you a heart. I mean, that'd scare the heck out of you. And just to see him like that. And then, they basically said he's completely brain dead and has no chance to live. And, they're having him, go through that. And, again, I was making preparations for him to come down to Charlotte and live near me so we could see him easier. Because Greensboro's about an hour and a half away, but then he was gone. And then my dad had Parkinson's disease for, since 2005. And that, if you don't know anything about Parkinson's, this is a brutal disease, and you just keep deteriorating your motor skills, your ability to move, to exercise, to talk, to eat independently. And it just was a sad decline. And, he was doing okay after mom passed and we were taking care of him. I'd had him over my house quite a bit. But then, COVID hit and he was in a assisted living facility. And, we couldn't see him as much. Like, and he had, I'd go, hey, I need to come in and see him. You're not allowed in. You're not allowed in. And I get it, but I was, it was also frustrating. So, at one point, like, I was like, I just want to take him out of there for a couple of weeks and let him stay with me. And they're like, well, it's not necessarily safe that he's with you versus at a facility, assisted living place where there's professionals. I'm like, I don't care. I think we just want to spend time together, and let me feed him and put on his favorite shows. And, so I got to do that. And, but, in July of last year, he was diminishing, and watching him, he was down he was like 90 pounds, and he had ordinarily been like 160, and just, just his mental capabilities weren't the same. And you just watch him slowly go downhill. And he doesn't have my mom anymore, and we can't see him as much as we want because of COVID. It was just sad. And just, in some ways I felt like he had a lonely death because we couldn't see him as much as we wanted to. But there was a certain amount of peace there because he fought so hard and struggled for so long, and he never complained, and he had, so much dignity about him and how he went about it. Didn't say, why me? He just was a gentleman and kept moving forward. But just, you could see him just wearing down and how tough it was on him. And, you never know what eventually is going to lead you to die, but I sure hope, I wouldn't wish Parkinson's on my worst enemy, because it's a pretty cruel thing to witness. So I think just that period, that string of deaths has just been real tough on me, and it made me, really double down on my faith, which has helped me through it. And I've been through difficult times before. I'd gotten divorced from my first wife back in 2009, which is something I would have never expected before, and was a huge disappointment for me. But you know what? Everything happens for a reason. And, I got a beautiful daughter out of that. And then I met my current wife, and, got a stepdaughter through that. And now I have our son who's 5 years old. So, all that's a blessing. So things happen for a reason, and God makes good of all bad is kind of how I see it, Tim.
Yeah. Is your faith something you've always had, or like you said, it really got stronger when you had to deal with all that stuff?
No, I was a check the box sort of guy growing up. Like, my mom would bring me to church. My parents would. We'd go to Sunday mass every Sunday, but I was not paying attention. I was thinking about, sports or girls or whatever, what I'm going to have for dinner. Like, just, I was there, but I was not plugged in at all. I was checking the box. And then, I got to college, and like, I went to church because out of routine, like maybe the first 2 Sundays, and I'm like, I'm out of here. I'm not doing this anymore. And so I was just a typical college kid hanging out with my friends, doing the wrestling thing, but also having fun, as well. And, then towards the end of college, I went to mass a couple times my senior year with one of my buddies, and me went to mass and just went into it a little bit. And, but, I had other things, I had wrestling on my mind. I had my girlfriend, I had my friends. I was thinking about going to grad school. So everything was more important than church. I mean, it just was. And then, I think in the early 2000s, like, I went, you go from being a wrestler and that's sort of your identity. Now I'm in the workforce. I'm working in banking, and I'm just an average person, and I'm, I'm out doing like, hey, let's, go out to the bars, hang out. And, and I just felt like I was doing that too much, and just what everyone was doing. Everyone was going out, hanging out, again, meeting girls, whatever. And after a while, it's an empty feeling. You're like, this isn't really what I thought my life would be, and I was doing okay in my career, but I was just like, I just was empty. I mean, I lost the purpose of wrestling, that was gone. And, and I just started thinking about God. And, I remember I was having a tough time, and I went to church one day and just started praying. And, I happened to have a colleague of mine who was a, pretty hardcore Baptist. And he used to talk to me about Christianity. I'm like, well, I'm Catholic, I know all about it. But at the end of the day, he knew a ton more than I did about the Bible. And he gave me this book called Purpose Driven Life. And it really sort of opened my eyes. Like, I'm here for a reason. I'm not just here to hang out and do whatever. So, and it's been a journey, Tim, it's been, it's kind of been like this. It's not like a straight line progress. It's like I go up, down, but I'd like to think it's like a stock graph where it kind of keeps going up. So, long story short, I've been through different challenging things, and, I've just, I think it's, you seek and you'll find. I talk to people about, they talk about God, and I'm like, if you want to know the answers, they're there for you. You just got to want to know. You can't be lazy about it. And that's all I can say. Like, I read a ton about it, read a ton of books about, God, Jesus Christ, Christian doctrine, Catholic doctrine, saints, you name it. And I do know a lot now. And I just realize, how important it is. Our life here is so short. Look, I'm full of faults. Like, I don't want to present some image that I'm not. I'm full of faults, but it's the most important thing to me is my faith. As much as I love my family, and my daughters and wife, and, my little 5-year-old is what a blessing from God. But, I mean, honestly, my relationship with Jesus is number one, because that's what it's all about. In my mind, in my opinion, from what I've studied and learned and prayed about, I always draw back to what profit is it to gain the whole world, but to lose your soul?
Yeah.
And I kind of think about that as like, if things are going so good, maybe we don't need God. We're not relying on him, and everything's going great. So why would you need God? So almost like it's a blessing when God brings you through tough things so that you draw near to him, and you have to rely on him, and that the world is, full of empty promises and, fake happiness. And like, look, do I like, nice things to some extent, maybe a little bit, but I try to really detach myself from that. Again, everyone wants a nice house and stuff like that, but, I try not to put value in that. I mean, I really don't. And again, easier said than done.
Yeah.
I just, I look at it like, this is all going to come to an end someday, and we have eternity to live for. And I want to live with Jesus, and, my family and friends have gone before me, and be in eternal bliss. To me, again, I don't want to sound condescending, but I don't understand how people don't seek that and realize its importance, because, I try to, pray every day. Or I know I pray every day, and I try to not only pray, but also try to do his will, because I've tried my will. Jim's will doesn't work. Jim drinking doesn't work. That's just it's not gonna work for me. So, yeah. Jim acting selfishly doesn't work. So it's like, all right, I do have to die to myself and live for his will in my life. So, not to get on a soapbox, but that's sort of how I look at it, and one other thing I'd say is, like, people look at circumstances in life, like they'll say, oh, this person hasn't made, they're rich, they have perfect job, perfect family, perfect car. I'm like, God's a great equalizer, man. Because honestly, I everyone would look at that person and say, yeah, they haven't made, but I'd rather be the homeless person who just had a deep faith in God, who knew, my salvation is there because I've placed that faith in him, than to be some rich person who had it all on paper, but had no relationship with God. Because I just look at it, it's a great equalizer. In the Bible, it says the first will be last and the last will be first. What does that mean? So again, not trying to get on a soapbox, and, I struggle with it. I try my best, but I'm not again, some perfect saintly person by any stretch of the imagination. And my wife and my family would tell you that firsthand, but my friends too. But that's where I'm trying to go with my life, beyond obviously my career and then family and all that.
Well, none of us are, and I think that's why God's grace is so important. And I don't try to push anything on anybody, but I try to tell them how powerful prayer can be, and how it's really amazing if when you pray. And for people that don't get that or never even try to do that, that part of it, especially for me, is it's almost kind of frustrating. Like I've prayed for friends before, like on my knees, and then that person who I may have not even talked to forever has called me and asked me like how I quit drinking or something. And I'm like, that is just too, this person has never asked me about that. And whether they listen to what I have to say about it or not, God still answered that prayer in a way, and
Yep.
and he almost always does. It might not be what you want to hear or how you want to hear it, or it doesn't transpire the way you thought maybe it would, but it's a very powerful thing. And I'm not perfect about anything by any means either. But when I'm in that, and when I stay in gratitude, especially, which is something I really struggle with.
Yep, me too, man. Yep.
But when but when I am, it's just amazing. And so yeah. I wanted to ask you this too, because I did read about your brother Mikey, right?
Yeah.
I read about him a little bit last night, and I lost my own brother on Easter Sunday.
Oh, you really? I'm sorry to hear that. I'm sure that's. Is it your older brother? Was it an older brother or a younger brother?
He was my little brother, and they say he committed suicide. I'm not positive that's what happened, but man, it certainly looks like that's what happened. And
well, Tim, first let me say I am extremely sorry to hear that, because I've gone through death, but that's just devastating. And I'll certainly be praying for him. Absolutely. What's his name?
His name is Cody Ace.
Okay, Cody. Okay, I will definitely pray for him and pray for you, man. But God, that's everyone carries their cross, but that's a tough cross to bear for sure, right there. Yeah. I'm sorry to hear that. I hope you're doing okay. Well, okay, despite the circumstances.
Yeah, I'm doing the best I can. Some days are harder than others. He was only 33 when he did it, and so I'd have some guilt about it without getting into everything. As far as I hadn't returned his last phone call, and yep. We've all got something. But the reason I brought up your brother was because I wanted to ask: is there anything that you would like people to know about people with Down syndrome that maybe they don't know?
I truly believe they're angels sent from God and teach us how to love, because they're just full of love, unconditional love, for everybody. The way he looked at my mom, he'd see my mom, and he would get so excited like a kid on Christmas every single time till the day, when she wasn't around anymore. And just to have that pure joy just of somebody's presence. Like imagine if you saw, someone all the time and you're like, or even when you see me, you'd be like, Jimmy, and he'd be all happy. And then, he'd give me, what do you do? He'd give me a big hug. And then he was like, kind of like a, I don't know what you would say, but he was kind of like a prankster. He'd like smack me in the back of the head and start laughing and cracking up. So, that was just him. He was kind of like, I guess he was a Guzzio through and through. But, just a sweet soul, and they teach us how to love. And, in kind of worldly terms, they can't give you anything. Like they can't he couldn't necessarily make me a sandwich or drive me to the store or give me money, like worldly things, but he gives me so much love. And, and then it's the thing of taking care of somebody who can never kind of offer anything in return. You know what I mean? Like in terms of those worldly things, like, your friends like, hey man, I want to, let's go play golf, or let's go do this. Or, hey, can you do me a favor? With him, it's not like that. It's just like, hey, this is just someone who I love and who loves me unconditionally. And that's all there is to it. And, I mean, it's tough. I mean, Down syndrome, you know, um, you know, I think that there's a lot more acceptance around it today, which is great. They had the Special Olympics back then and stuff, but I think like now there's even more sensitivity and focus on it, which is good. But it was just, I would never change it for the world having a brother like that. And it was just, he was my friend, and we'd hang out with him. We'd pick on him like brothers do a little bit, which, wasn't always the best thing. But, I mean, again, anytime I saw him, he was super happy to see me, and I loved him unconditionally. And he was just a great person. And, I think all Down syndrome kids are just, you're just so loving. And, my daughter has such a kind heart, and how she loved my brother, her uncle, and just how she sees them. And, it's good to see that she has that sort of sensitivity and love. Like, I hope most people do. So, I appreciate you asking that question, but, it's tough that he's not around, but I definitely, of anybody, I definitely feel like he's in a much better place. So,
yeah.
And again, like I said, I'll pray for your brother. I'm sorry to hear you went through that. I'm sure, it's beyond painful, but sounds like in a lot of ways we have a lot of things in common, actually, a lot of overlap in our stories, to be honest with you. So
yeah. And unfortunately, I think humanity has way more in common than they don't. And without getting into all that stuff, we all ultimately want the best for each other, at least hopefully. And most of the people I meet are good. And I think people are good for the most part. And we've let powers that be and lie divide us all. And it's very frustrating.
Yeah, I don't like it, Tim. I mean, I don't want to get into politics per se, because it's so toxic. When people try to talk to me about politics, I guess, I lean right as a Republican, but I'm just like, look, forget all that. I think if you're trying to live a Christian life and do the things that teaches, then, you respect and treat everyone fairly. Not everyone's going to I might not have the same opinion as you, Tim, but that's fine. Yeah. We could still be friends. It's okay. Some of my best friends have totally different political views, but we just don't get into that. He sees things one way, I see him another, and that's fine. And, like, that's how life's supposed to be. We're not all supposed to be the same. I have a problem though, when sometimes people think they have the moral superiority, the moral high road on certain things. And I'm like, nah, you're not totally looking at it completely in my mind, not to get into specifics, but there's certain ways that people look at things. They think, oh, if you think this way, you're denying this or denying that. I'm like, well, while I obviously follow the laws of the country and of the state and the town, or whatever you want to call it, I follow the laws of God more, and his interpretation of some of these things that people find completely acceptable, is it, you're not off the hook. You got to, follow what is right. And, and again, I don't want to get on a soapbox with anything, but like, there's just certain things like that people think are, oh, this is great. Like some people, like, for instance, like there's like abortion, and people think, like, especially people that, like, doctors, when Down syndrome kid, when a parent has a Down syndrome kid, they tell the parent that the kid is Down syndrome so that they have a choice to abort them. I mean, how sad is that? And is that, and to me, again, I know that there's all different sorts of situations, and I'm not saying I don't have sympathy for that, but for them to, like, have tested, diagnosed Down syndrome so that you can make a choice to abort that. I mean, how is that a part of God's plan? God's giving you a gift. I don't care if your kid is, a Harvard graduate and an Olympian, or, whatever, or, paraplegic and mentally challenged, or intellectually challenged, or whatever you want to say. I mean, it's all a gift, and we can, we benefit from, every single person that's brought into our life. So to me, I think, sometimes people, talk about that in particular, and I'm like, what, that to me, that's messed up. Is you're basically saying Down syndrome people have no value, so the people should give them the choice of whether they can just get rid of them. And I think that that's pretty sad. And I can't, people talk about freedom of choice, and I understand in certain ways where they're coming from, but if you take a step back, it's not right. It's some of that stuff is wrong and evil, and that's about all I'll say about that. So
yeah, and if people tried to love in the way that Jesus tried to teach us how to love, then so many things in this world would work itself out. I feel like,
absolutely. I mean, it's about who wins. Everything is about who wins. Yeah. I win this argument. We win this election. We win this thing. And it's not even like any sort of, it's like if you're a Republican now, you have to think this way. If you're a Democrat now, you have to think this way. And there's no sort of middle ground where it's like, I kind of veer to the left on this or more to the right. It's all about, I guess it's social media. It's about hate. And I just see people writing things on social media that I'm like, really? I'm like, you must be an unhappy person, and and just bitter to have that stance. And it's like they root against people, and it's just, I don't know, man. Again, like I said, I'm by no means some perfect guy, but at least I know what God expects from me, and at least I want to adhere to it, though I don't do that successfully all the time. So
yeah, what's frustrating to me too is people have asked me, why I think the way I do about certain issues. And I've messaged them back, and it's been like I've thought it out well, and I've thought I've written it well, and it's been a fairly lengthy answer because I want them to understand exactly why, that it's coming from a good place in my heart, and that I'm not a, whatever. And I've spent all this time, and then they'll send me back some 3-word snarky answer. And I'm like, how huge of a waste of time was it for me to sit down and try to explain to this person who has no interest in really knowing why.
Right.
So I'm trying all the time to get better about that, and just,
yeah. I mean, I think it's tough when you try to talk politics. I think I've had some conversation with some of my friends about politics, and it always, if we don't have the same views, it takes a turn for the worse. It's just inevitable. Like, because then people start getting heated. So I try to stay away from that. During, people will throw little digs or try to get me to take the bait on certain things. And I'm like, no, I'm not a politics guy. That's just not my thing. Look, I have respect for all. I know great Democrats, great Republicans, and great independents or whatever. So, that doesn't to me make you a great character just because you identify yourself as this party or that party. It's, what you're made of as a person and how you treat people and how you live your life. So, I sympathize with you for trying to do that and trying to get into that ring, but it doesn't go well. The only time I get into a sort of a ring is if someone questions God, and I'm not one to preach and wear it on my sleeve and talk about it. But if I see an opportunity to bring it up, or someone questions something, I'm very happy to go into my faith and talk about why I think it's very logical. And there's a lot of evidence. It's not a blind faith for God's existence, Jesus Christ, that, that he did walk this earth and, died, on the cross for our sins. And I'll get into that, but with politics, it's just too slippery of a slope for me.
Yeah. It's frustrating when you're coming from a certain angle and you want to see people to understand and they just won't or whatever. So let's end this on a wrestling note. What is it that you miss the most about wrestling?
What event do I miss the most about wrestling?
No, what is it that you miss the most about it, just in general?
It's the competing. I mean, that's just what it was for me. Practice, sharpening my skills, that was good. But unfortunately, and this is my own fault, cutting weight kind of dampened that a little bit, because I was cutting weight and I was never cutting weight really good. And it's funny hearing all these things about diet nowadays. I wasn't following any of that sort of advice, and that was just my own own wrongdoing. But I'd say just the competitions, getting ready to go, see how I get a guy who I've never seen before who's ranked 10th in the country by Amateur Wrestling News back then. I want to say, let's see how I stack up. Let me go for it. I want to beat this guy. if I didn't beat him, I'm like, okay, this is what I need to do next time. So I really, really, really miss the competitions. The practices, they're a grind, man. They're tough. And, when you're cutting weight, especially in an ineffective way like I was, then, it can be tough. It can be challenging. So I really miss the competitions and then also, hanging out with my teammates and competing together as a team. Like, let's just say I'm winning at this tournament. Now my buddy's wrestling another tough guy and rooting him on and then coming together after and talk about it. Like, man, you had him, you did great, dude. That move was sick. You got to show me that. Just that camaraderie and being in the stands and hanging out. And then my parents would be there and then my dad was super into it. My mom and just talking to them, just that whole atmosphere. I miss that. And, my 5-year-old son, I hope he wrestles. I'm going to definitely try to get him into wrestling. I don't want to use the word push because I think you have to have kids make or have fun with it for sure. But I also know that my dad didn't push me, but nudged me a little bit in order to keep me going. And if I didn't have him sort of, and he was the most laid back, calm, nice guy in the world, but he did say, well, why don't we go to this tournament this weekend? Well, if, I think if you would really benefit you, I'm like, okay, so without that, I would have not been where I was. So, I think it's a fine line. And, I know I'm going on a tangent here, but with kids, I know you have a little guy, is to know between pushing and kind of letting them do their own thing and, and just when to be hands-on and when to be hands-off. And, my daughter's going to be a freshman, so I've had a lot of experience with that on how to do things right. And then other things like not so much. So, but again, just the whole atmosphere with the competitions and just the cheering and then the competing and trying to see if I could beat someone who, has a big reputation, high ranking and stuff like that. And if I fall short, just think about how I could get them next time. Sort of. I think that's what I miss the most.
Yeah, I'm really glad the sport's gotten away from the weight cutting aspect because that's kind of what ruined my career too. Like, and not too like yours was ruined, but it ruined it for me personally.
Yep.
It just, I didn't do it right. And back then we especially didn't do it right. And I'm glad the sport's gotten away from it the way it used to be. And what I miss the most too is the camaraderie. I loved riding home on the bus with my buddies after, especially in high school, because we always won, and just riding home with your buddies and giving each other crap and being going to eat and all that stuff.
Oh yeah, that's great. That's absolutely a great time. You never have it again in your life. I mean, you have different types of friendships, but one on the golf course is not the same as when we were on the wrestling mat and driving home and eating and having a good time and busting each other's chops and talk about like some of the the highs and lows of the day. So yeah, I mean those were great memories, man. And this more than anything is just a nice walk down memory lane for me. It's been a while. I'm graduating 97, so I appreciate you having me on here and talking to me. I don't, I in some ways I don't feel worthy to be on your podcast, but it's, it's definitely nice being here to talk to you and talk about my career and also more, the people I've wrestled and the people in my era, like we talked about the Colettes and people like that, just kind of my perspective from that era and that period of time. So,
you're definitely worthy. The average person walking around has no idea what a huge accomplishment getting fifth in the country at Division I is. I mean, Miles Amin just got a bronze medal in the Olympics, and he got third at NCAAs.
I know, yeah. I mean, that's crazy, right?
It's a huge accomplishment, and I hope that your boy wrestles so I can follow his career someday. And it's been a pleasure talking to you. And you asked me if we wanted to talk beforehand, and for some reason, I knew without ever saying a word to you that I was going to have a good conversation with you for whatever reason, maybe it's God or whatever, but I just knew, and all I'd seen is your face and, your family a little bit. And I just knew that we would have a good conversation. So I can't tell you how much I appreciate you taking the time to do this. And if there's nothing else you want to say, I'll let you go. Or if there's something else you want to say before we get out of here.
No, thanks for having me. You're doing great work. You bring on some very interesting guests to your show, and so I just say keep going. And do you ever do comedy in the Charlotte area or no?
I haven't been to North Carolina for comedy in a long time, but if and when I do, I'm sure I will. I will definitely let you know.
Yeah, and definitely, yeah, again, we have a lot in common, so let's stay in touch. And I'm sure you're going to be you are a great dad, and that'll continue. And whatever your kid gets into, hopefully wrestling, but whatever else, just following it on Facebook and whatever. So, but God bless you, bud. Thanks for having me.
Thanks, man. God bless you too. I love the stories, and I've talked to people that had success on all kinds of different levels. Tomorrow I'm talking to Mark Schultz, which is just kind of
Oh, wow. Yeah.
surreal to me that I'm even going to talk to him.
I'm very interested to hear that one. So
Yeah.
I've gone through most of your wrestling podcasts. There's a few people I haven't gotten through yet, but no, it's always an interesting to hear what they have to say and how you kind of conduct your interviews. So yeah, good stuff, man.
Thanks, buddy. I appreciate it. Have a great day, and I'll let you know when this is out and you can share it and all that.
All right. Sounds good, man. Be good.
Take care, Jim. All right, everybody. Jim Guzzio. Hope you guys enjoyed that. I really enjoyed talking to him. I enjoy the fact that we talk not only about wrestling, but about other things as well. And so I hope you guys enjoyed that. As always, go to Making It Happen, MACAN, ithappen.com. Help out little bow making. And if you follow me on Facebook, I would appreciate it. I'm going to be doing some short videos coming up here pretty soon. Just my opinion about certain things going on in our world, and it's not always going to be serious by any means. It's going to be funny too. So Timothy Gaither, I need to change that to Tim Gaither, but anyway, I appreciate you guys so much. God bless you all, and take care. Bye. Do us both a favor and click on that subscribe button.